Welcome back to the channel. Once again, first time joining, thanks for showing up. Returner, also appreciated. So today's going to be a first part of a multi-part series of videos about preparing for the winter. And we are at that time where we got to stop putting all these bad boys away, which requires quite a bit of work for us. All right. So what I'm going to do today is, even though you can't see the top of this one because it's so tall, this is why I'm going to do what I'm going to do today. You can see the top of this one. Basically, the first thing we start prepping is we start cutting all the leaves off. Now, when I say cut the leaves off, what I mean by that is we don't tear them off, never break them off. We cut just below the leaf on the stem and then let that piece of stem just fall off on its own. Now, if you want, some people put them away and just leave the leaves on them. We just find that makes a huge mess. So it's easier for us to pick those little pieces up than to pick the whole leaf up when they all fall in our garage, which is where we put them. But today what I want to go over with is, because we're going to be prepping a lot of these, well, a lot of them, as the one you see here, they just got too tall. And for us, once they get this tall and the flowers are above us, we can't enjoy them. So this one grew obviously exceptional this year. But so yeah, so basically what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you how we just cut them down. So I'm going to make some cuttings real quick. I've already marked these where I'm going to cut. So big deal is, so I've already trimmed the leaves out, and I'll show you the top when I'm done. But because this one got so tall, now again, when cuttings, the biggest thing is you don't want new green growth. If it's real bright green, you don't want to make a cutting from that bright green. Always find where it's a little darker or pale like this, where it's starting to get a little more woody. A super bright green, like some of them we have, they grew a lot, but it's still this much of that bright green, like looks like the tips on some of these others that get real green. And you know what if you grow them, you know what I'm talking about. When you have that real shiny, bright green, you don't want to cut. You don't want to cut in that green, because they generally will not survive. So always look for this more woody, take on them. So with that being said, the next thing I try and do is look for these where I had a leaf before, and I just try and cut right a bit, one of those bumps, just so. Typically, that's where you'll start seeing new growth once you make a cutting. So I'm going to start high. I'm going to make multiple cuttings here. Now, the big thing on the cuttings, the way we do it, is I'll cut at a slant, an angle, because I don't want it flat. So when it starts to dry and water will pool in it when it's raining, before it starts growing. So I'll cut at a slant angle. But again, so for this one, my trusty Sawzall with a typical, I just like this because I can get a nice clean cut. From here, again, I'm gonna just for the purposes of showing, like I said, I've already marked this. I'm gonna cut right here and then kind of slant down. Now, again, and all I'm gonna do is real quick, obviously make sure it's not on safety, that helps. And then just make a slant cut. That's it. Ta-da. Now, with that slant, angle, whatever you want to call it, that diagonal cut. For this cutting, I am going to end up cutting this flat. So this I will leave at the angle, but this I will cut the end off. And again, once I have it here, I'm just going to cut that end off to a nice flat cut. And then that's it. Now you can see on this one too, this is what I was talking about. If you can see it, and that's the light and the sun. I don't know if you can. These tips are real green. This is all real green. So I wouldn't have done a cutting up here because this is just too green. Where once we pass the Y, I don't know how, hopefully y'all can see that. This has gotten more woody, but up here is still real green. So I don't want, it's just too fleshy. I want to get more of this darker woody color when I'm gonna make a cutting. Now, Also, what we do while these are freshly cut, so today, which we'll cut multiple, is, well, again, you do you, but we end up doing a wax dip on these tips. So we will dip this, just the paraffin wax you buy at the store. We use a little crock pot, get that wax hot, let it melt, and then unplug it, let that wax cool for a little bit, just so it's not scorching hot. Plus, it doesn't really dip well. And then once it's starting to cool a little bit, then we'll make multiple dips where we get a nice thick wax layer to coat this. That also, again, what we found, it just prevents that in. Hopefully what we've done is it keeps it moist. And actually what we found is even when doing that, we'll, you know, by the end of the winter, when we start to break that off, there'll already be roots starting in many cases. So again, cutting, I'm going to make multiple cuts. So this will be a center cut, and all of these we'll end up selling as cuttings. So this one I'm going to cut way down. So I'm going to do one more cut here and then one more cut here, and I'll leave it here. But yeah, again, this is our first step. So any of our tall or ones that have gotten real leggy like this, we're going to cut down, and then we'll store these for the winter. Once we wax dip this tip, this end, we'll store them in a bucket. And I'll show you a video of that. But this is just a real quick video showing y'all what we do for our tall ones. And again, I'm going to get cutting the rest of this. So I'll get to cutting the rest of this, and then I'll show you just what it looks like when I'm done. So I'll be right back. All right. So now you see I've cut this all the way down to here. And that's as far down as I'll go with this one. That's because we've done other cuts in the past. So what I wanted to show you is, this is one of our center cuts that I did on this. Again, for the purpose of this one, I'll cut the bottom, even on these centers, I'll cut the bottom flat and cut the top at a angle, whatever. So again, when it starts growing, water won't pool in this and end up making it rot. So, and then we'll put this away for the winter. We also label all of them. This label was off the plant already, but usually what we'll do is we'll just mark each one with like a Sharpie and label what the name is on it. So that way when we can put them all together, and then when we do sell them, but also just so we know, because it's hard to tell what's what if you don't label what they are. And then on top of that, I also wanted to show, just so people get an idea, this is what I mean by when I say we wax dip them. So again, once the wax heats up, melts, we unplug it, let it cool down quite a bit. Just cool down enough to where obviously it'll still dip, but again, it's not just super liquidy, because then we'll do a dip, sit, dip, sit, and just get a nice thick coat. And again, it'll protect this base over the winter, kind of keep it just from drying out too bad, but also it just protects it in while this thing stays stable. And again, more times than not, we'll see roots. You'll see little white spots starting to grow in there with little root balls starting to build, which is kind of cool. And then honestly, these will go in a bucket and they will sit. Sometimes they'll sit. Sometimes we'll put them away in the garage, and then sometimes they'll sit in, again, I said this before in another video, they'll sit in the bucket in our bathtub in our bathroom, just because that will get a little light through the window in there, and we never use that bathtub. So yeah, again, both ways have worked. So sometimes we'll just let them get a little light, because it'll kind of promote that root growth in these sometimes. And then maybe we won't do it at the beginning of the winter, but we'll do it later in the winter. There's no right or wrong. We've tried it all. But that's it. Again, cutting. Once they start getting tall, we start cutting them all down. The next to come up on these videos is I'm going to be digging some up and show you how we prep our ones that we put in the ground, and how we gang pot a bunch and take them out of their pots. So again, if you enjoy the videos, please give a thumbs up. Appreciate you subscribing. And until next time, have a great day.